Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Recruiting EQ podcast. I'm your host, Rick Coluccio. This is episode number 93. Why is it so hard to hire salespeople? A topic that is near and dear to my heart as a rec to rec, as someone who's been in recruitment forever, as a salesperson for the past 20, almost 30 years. And you don't want to say this too loud, because I'm dating myself there, but almost 30 years that I've been more or less in sales in one way or another. So I am thrilled to have our guest, Jorge Chavez, here to have a chat with us about this. George, how are you doing?
Awesome. Thanks for having me on your show. And this is near and dear to my heart and life and days. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. George, honestly, we had a brief conversation, George and I, before this to sort of see. I know he runs a company called Topaz, which we will get into, Topaz Sales Consulting, and we'll get into shortly. But like just the enthusiasm and positivity and fervor, George, with which you talked about this stuff before even meeting me or whatever else, you know what I mean? Like on our first call, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a juicy conversation.
Yeah. If you like sales and if you like growing sales and if you're struggling with hiring, this is right up your alley.
Yeah. And for those who are just joining us or not aware of who I am and what I do here and what created this podcast or brought it into creation, is I work as a rec to rec, right? So I'm speaking to recruiting agency owners and senior, hiring managers there, most of whom are looking to hire salespeople. And sometimes they're looking to hire salespeople for themselves, but they're also looking on behalf of their clients for their clients to hire salespeople. So it's salespeople hiring salespeople to hire other salespeople. So there's so many levels at which this is super relevant. So I'm really happy about that, George, and glad you were here with us today.
Yeah. Hey, I just had a thought. I'm not sure the title. I want to challenge our title here.
Ooh, I love this. All right, Let's get into it.
Why is it so hard to hire salespeople? I actually don't think it's hard to hire salespeople. All you got to do is put out a job posting and say, I'm hiring salespeople. Surely you'll get some applications. And all you got to do is say, hey, look at their resume and you like sales, and they'll tell you everything that you want to hear. And you match communication styles and you make them a job offer. There are millions of those salespeople out there. The challenge, so it's not hard to hire a salesperson.
That's a good point.
It's hard to hire the right salesperson.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to challenge, because I was thinking, just blanketly, I'm like, yeah, it is hard to hire salespeople, but I'm implying I know it's hard to hire the right salesperson. And that's where it gets really, really important to have this conversation. What does that mean?
Absolutely. And you're totally right. I mean, that's the quandary, right? Is not just hiring anybody who's a salesperson, but the right salesperson, attracting the right salesperson, qualifying them, making sure they're going to be happy, retaining them if they're a good salesperson. Like there's so much there that I would love to unpack with you. Before we get too deep into it, though, I would first love it if you could give our listeners just a brief introduction about like who you are and what brought you to this point. What brought us the man we see before us today?
Great question. And thank you for that. So I am a co-founder of Topaz Sales Consulting. We transform sales teams into revenue generating machines. And those are words that's some of our best marketing comes from our clients' mouth. That's what they say we help them do. And how do we do that? We help companies and their sales teams sell more of their products and services, hire better, more of the right people, and responsibly lead high-performing sales teams. So there's a sales leadership component. So we offer 3 training programs, and they all have processes, and they're congruent processes. And you need to have systems and processes in sales to grow and scale. So if you hire right, which we'll talk about is the most important part of success in sales, equip them to sell effectively when they're having prospect conversations and client conversations, to sell to the right clients, and then responsibly lead them, coaching, motivating, and holding them accountable. If you have the right people with the right skills, you can grow and scale an organization. So that's our focus, helping business owners achieve their goals, helping them equip the sales team to accomplish the goals the owner has in their vision. That's why we exist. That's how I got here. A passion for that, the owners, the entrepreneurs.
And I love the passion that you have for it as well, because I think that maybe it's just because of the conversations I have all day. A lot of people talk about this topic with a lot of frustration and exhaustion, and not so much passion and optimism. So I think that's refreshing right out of the gate, and I appreciate that. Um, you have been running Topaz for 11 years now, correct?
Correct.
That is a very specific time and place in history to be doing anything for 11 years. The way things have changed from 2015 to 2026 is enormous, right? I mean, like, from technology changes to just
Mm.
market changes, from COVID happening to the bounce back from COVID and all this kind of fluctuation. Even high level, how has that been, like, to sort of adapt to client needs in terms of the problems they bring to you in hiring salespeople, in terms of the solutions? Do you feel like there's been a lot that's changed or evolved for yourself in consulting people in this regard?
What a great question. There has been a lot of change. And now I actually haven't thought so hard about how much change there has been. But I have to say this, we haven't changed one iota in
Really?
terms of our belief system and our purpose and how we run our company and how we train. Well, how we train has changed, but what we train on. And I want to highlight this because some things really you can't change, which is your core values or your beliefs. So everything we do, we have a philosophy that helps shape helps shape the people whom we train,
Mhm.
their intent, their purpose, and their why. And I had a conversation earlier with a guy who's in the same business we are, and he's just at a crossroads in his conversation. And he asked me, he goes, "In all your years of doing sales consulting, what's one thing you found the hardest for people to digest in sales?" And I thought, oh, that's a good question. And I said, to learn how to not be outcome based.
Mm.
I got to close a sale. I got to get a yes. I got to get, I got to overcome that objection. There is an outcome. And people they just are so strongly holding on to this outcome of what I want. In our philosophy, what hasn't changed, what's thematic through every training program is the ability and willingness to let go of an outcome, to be 100% present with the person you're speaking to, or a group of people, and be curious. That's a skill,
Yeah.
infinite curiosity, and be a truth seeker.
Mm.
So when you're a truth seeker, it's not I want a yes, and it's not that I want someone to tell me a no. I want the truth, and I'll go wherever that truth, our conversation goes. I'm going to let go of the outcome. And so when we talk about it, that's the way we should communicate with our direct team. That's the way we should hire candidates. That's how we should sell is, hey, I'm not trying to convince you. I want to help you discover. I'm going to
Yeah.
use my curiosity and listening skills to learn. That hasn't changed one iota. And it's what we do as a company. It's how we train. It's how we equip others. But what has changed is the use of Zoom and
Sure.
recorded training and stuff like that. We've absolutely adopted that, and the world has accepted that, and it's allowed us to grow and scale and not have to travel so much.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like, the tech tools are changing. I would love to come back to tech tools changing maybe later in this conversation too.
Sure.
Like, we touched on it slightly too about the AI question and where does that fit into the sales sequence or chain of production in the
Yeah.
future, or in the present.
Yeah.
I say future like it's so far away. It's now. It's happening now.
I
But
actually, on the AI side, I saw a guy who's deep into AI, like one of the founders of like Open AI, and he actually said, we can't even fathom the changes that are upon us in the next 2 to 5 years. None of us can even speculate what AI is going to do to our world and our lives. People try, but
yeah,
it's just so advanced. We're in a whole new realm of reality. So at any rate, I
sure.
thought that was quite fascinating. I mean, this is the future.
It really is, and I feel like it's kind of splintering off two things, right? There's the job economy and world's like day-to-day interactions that one will have that are going to be human to human and will probably remain human to human. And the
Hmm.
job market, there's already been people I've spoken to even on this podcast who've suggested that that'll become a premium service, is getting a human directly as opposed to working with AI. But yeah, it's a crazy question. Before we go down the AI rabbit
Yeah.
hole, though,
Okay.
I would love to hear from you, George. What are some of the problems that your clients are coming to you with in terms of getting salespeople, getting the right salespeople? Is it around attracting them? Is it around qualifying them? Is like when during hiring? Is it around keeping them? Is it around getting them to be effective? All the above? Like, what are some of
Yeah.
the big problems people approach you with?
It isn't all of the above, but a lot of times, I want to just put a cautionary note, any of the listeners, and here's what breaks my heart. They waited too long to get help.
Mm,
They ran out of time and they ran out of money or both. And now they're desperate and they need a sales performer and they can't afford to get help and they don't have time for them to ramp up and start to sell. And so that's just a huge risk. Um, so I hope don't wait till it's too late to contact a professional who has expertise to learn the things you don't know, what you don't know, because the cost of the wrong hire is so high. Um, all of the things you shared are actual problems they come with. They've just had a lack of success hiring.
right.
Rick, here's what I find fascinating of this all. They don't know the problem.
Hmm. So do you
They
feel like they don't even really are they not, is it that they're not articulating the problem well, or do you feel like they think it's something else and then you probe and you find it's actually not the problem they think it is?
That's giving them too much credit. They don't know the problem.
Right. Okay. Okay.
They don't know that they don't know what they're looking for,
Right.
which should end up in a job description. They don't know where to post. They don't know what their goals and expectations are for that person, what they should do in year one, year two, year three. They don't realize that they have an ineffective hiring process or no hiring process at all
Hmm.
that's tailored specifically for salespeople. Hey,
Yeah.
Rick, I'm curious. Do you believe you can use the same hiring process for that you use for any position in the company, warehouse manager, clerk, um, operations manager, and a sales or sales manager? Can you use that same hiring process and expect to hire a top performing salesperson or sales manager? What do you
It's a
think?
great question. Absolutely not. I mean, we don't even ourselves, right? And the difference between like an entry level salesperson, an intermediate sales performer, and a sales leader who's supposed to be leading a team and getting other sales individuals up and running and whatever are very different interviews unto themselves. So I think you need multiple different interview questions, processes, and whatever. Within sales, you need multiple even.
Yeah, uh, fair. I'd agree with sales. Salespeople generally, what makes them so difficult to interview is they're used to communicating and talking with others, and they're very good at telling us what we want to hear.
Yeah. Or they wouldn't be salespeople, right? Like, I mean, that's just part of who they are.
100%. And so sometimes their best interview, they're good at convincing unsuspecting, ill equipped owners or hiring managers that they're the person for the job. And they don't know how to screen that they're the person for the job. And so let me give a couple tips and examples of
Please.
what's a differentiated hiring process for salespeople. First of all, and this is feedback from our clients. Hey, I thought I was really good at hiring salespeople until I learned how to hire salespeople. And they would say, I would spend, this is their confession to me after post, now that they didn't know what they didn't know, which is one of the
Right.
gaps. I do 80% of the talking in the interviews. And when I'm talking, I'm usually sharing with them the great company, the great opportunity, what's possible, how much money they're going to make. And you know what that interview is producing or what they're not learning? About the candidate and their sales potential, which is should be what the screening process learns. What are you getting? And with
Sure.
salespeople, what's so important is and I'm going to share, this is super critical, but it's a skill. The hiring manager has to get their questions answered before answering the salesperson's questions.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that's
I was
important?
going to say, I'd love to hear more on that because I can see that it could be problematic the other way around, but please.
If I tell you, Rick, if you are interviewing me and I'm like, Rick, hey man, we just need a high performer. We need somebody to go out there and get it, put in the hours, go build relationships. We need more logos. We need a hunter. So tell me more about your background and what you want to do. What are you going to tell me?
I'm a logo hunter. I just get out there and do it. Yeah, exactly. Right.
That's the danger. And salespeople, if they've been doing this for a while, they're going to be, oh yeah, I do that. And you know what? Here's another big problem in sales hiring versus any other role. It is the pain. You're right. I joyously love hiring and helping others learn, because when you're equipped and you know what you're looking for and you have the skills to screen for those things, you know more than the candidates know about themselves. You're in a position of power and
Sure.
confidence, and you can save time. So when you have that knowledge, it starts to get pretty fun. You got to trust me if you haven't ever done it. Well, you get it. But when you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I think, George, you and I swim in similar circles, but call it different things, right? But for me, as a BD account manager in rec to rec, I'm speaking to business owners and whatever else who are in agencies that want to hire salespeople, and trying to sort of let them know sometimes when, or be that person to do the first screening for them, to sort of try to make sure we're not duplicating these problems.
Yes.
So yes, I agree that people sometimes don't, even people who were salespeople themselves, once they leave that seat and they start to run their own company, it's easy to kind of forget, and like you're saying, get wrapped up in, oh my god, I need to hire this person, super, like they're late in the game, right? So they're panicking and they do these panic hires, at the buzzer.
And exactly what you're saying in the pain, they do panic hires. And so if we tell people what we're looking for before we learn what they've done, and there's actually, we have to go way past what they've done, which makes a hiring process for sales unique and important. But if we tell them, because we don't know, we need to get our questions answered first. We tell them, and then they tell us what we want to hear. We listen with happy ears. And the happy ears, and then we're in so much pain, we're like, hired. And we really didn't screen, like we named the puppy. And then we might even skip steps, like, oh, I don't need to go check their references and I don't need to whatever else. It's because of the pain. They're ill-equipped. They don't ask questions. And in sales, that's a big red flag. And that's part of the reason why there's such high turnover. Part of it is they don't know what they're looking for. They can't screen for it. There's so much pain. They make desperate hires and then they're stuck. What does that cost? It's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally hear you on that front. What are some of the other things you would advise that should differ about a sales process? Like a good, very practical tip that you've given already is make sure you ask the questions first before you get into what it is that you think you need and what's going on in the department. What's another good tip that you would feel comfortable sharing to everybody?
No,
about your
it's funny.
sauce?
We actually I toil with how much you give away, like what secret sauce. But I even know we have clients that we train, and even after they've been trained and they paid us and we work together, they still struggle to do some of these tips. So hey, if somebody can take a tip and implement it and get better results, kudos. But I know even if you have the knowledge, doing it is a whole nother thing. So here's another one. I think that's pretty critical. We treat the whole hiring process like a cold call. So you think, well, what does that mean? Well, if we're assessing sales competencies, what better way to have a screening process that replicates a cold call, a salesperson calling in to a company? So what does that look like? In the first interview, so if you're doing first interviews, and you probably do this, but so you got this first interview, that first interviewer, a lot of times we recommend it to be an HR person or an executive assistant, because they take that first call. And so they have a good read on what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And so let's say I say, hey, I'm calling you, and I'm like, this is the kind of the mindset of the approach. Hey, is Rick there? And they'll say, can I ask who's calling? I say, oh yeah, it's Jorge Chavez. Is he available? Is he expecting your call? No. He's not expecting my call. But is here's what I want to talk about. Is he have a few minutes? Right. So they're professional. They're guarded.
Yes.
It forces me to bond and rapport with them. It forces me to be curious, and they get to see how I respond to some resistance.
Right. So you're
Isn't that
measuring
what you want to learn?
Yeah. That's a good point. You're putting them in a scenario without them knowing it.
Exactly. And see, isn't that fun? The salespeople are so used to people treating them the way they hire all the others. They go to Chat GPT and they say, oh, what are the 10 questions I need to answer? They get all versed up. And then those same stupid, corny, inauthentic questions come out. They're not expecting it to be like a cold call. So in fact, Rick, here's an interesting thing. Do you think that companies compete for high performing salespeople? Like there's competition?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So a good question is, how does one company set themselves apart to be more attractive to top talent than another company?
Yeah. Huge question. I would love your take on this.
Your hiring process. So play this out for a minute. Top performers love a challenge. They don't want it to be easy. I've had people tell me how easy their other interviews were, and they were bored, almost like yawn. If you come in with the hiring process that puts them in the hot seat early, and actually the feedback we get from candidates, our own, and then also when we help others, is I couldn't really tell where I stood. It was hard for me to get a read. And man, that's really tough, because isn't that the way it is in the world? Did you connect? Did you build trust? And it's like, oh, so it requires real skill to do that. So, so when you do that, top performers love a challenge. They're going to eat it up, and they're going to be challenged, tested, their ability, and that's going to draw them to you. They're going to want more. But if it's easy and a lay down, they're thinking, what kind of company? I could do this in my sleep. They can work anywhere and sell anywhere. Why would they pick your company? The top performers want a challenge, a process that replicates like a cold call that puts them in the hot seat where they don't get a good read, and it forces them to use sales skills, makes you more desirable.
Yep. That's a great point. That's a great point. And I've seen that to an extent as well, even though I'm not advising people to do this, obviously, in my job. The ones who are like rougher up front a little bit and have more in-depth questions, complex questions, and really, really get into it with them tend to be the ones who stand out, right? Like, you're totally right. That's a really good point.
It is. And yeah, there's a couple other things I could share, but I don't know if you have another question.
No, go for it. You know what? Let's give us another tip and trick here that could help people sort of start thinking about their process differently. Okay,
this is a huge one. And some people, I even had a conversation recently where we talked about a behavioral based interview, and they go, oh yeah, we do that, but it wasn't the same definition of behavioral based. So an interview, it's important to find out what someone has done. Tell me a little bit more about your background and your experiences and where you sold and what kind of clients and how you build your pipeline and all that kind of stuff. And so what have you done? That's important to learn. It's also a myth to think that past success equals future success. Things can change in people. Their passion or desire may drop. They may not want to work the 60 or 70 hour weeks to be so successful, and they're looking for a place to kick back. So we can't just look at the past success, but it is good information. And top performers tend to stay top performers. It's hard to be mediocre when you're a high performer.
Yeah.
So
when you've tasted success,
what have you done? Yes. What have you done is a good question. Another interview should include, what would you do? So now, and this is what this other guy I was talking to, this was behavioral based for him. It's like, what would you do? So I'll often ask, pose real world challenges going on in your business and see how they think on their feet, and ask, what would you do? And kind of get a read at how they think, what they believe, what their skills are, how they respond and interact. So you're kind of get, what would you do? And by the way, I'm going to say a lot of times when you ask people, well, how do you sell? How did you learn how to sell? What's your process? Oh, I'm consultative based. I ask a lot of questions. I listen. I'm a solution salesperson. And you're like, oh man, that's exactly what we need.
Right.
Well, here's the third one. So there's, what have you done? What would you do? The third part, and I would call this behavioral based, show me. What do you do? And I would ask you, set up an opportunity for them to sell something. Now you've heard the, hey, sell me this pen. Okay. Well, and that can, you can pull it off if you're really skilled, but more often than not, you want to do something a little more relevant. It's hard to discern someone's sales skills if you're not fully equipped from selling a pen, even though it's a transferable skill. Selling, you can sell anything if you're good, if you have the skills, but have something relevant where you give them an opportunity to really role play out a sales call for some period of time. You would be amazed at the gap between what somebody says they do and what they actually do. And for us, many of our folks will realize when they get to the place where they're thinking, I love what I learned now that I saw how they sell. I'm learning what I'm getting before I get married to them, and hire them. When they don't hire someone they would have hired otherwise is where the big savings and the big ROI comes in. All that investment to set up this structured interview process that we're talking about, it does take time, no question about it. But it absolutely eliminates the majority of the risk of making the bad hire, increases the likelihood of making the right hire, which takes time, commitment, practice, execution. And so when you can actually see what they do, the gaps are huge.
Yep, for sure.
And that would be another tip. I would absolutely recommend someone does it.
I'd love to dig in on that a little bit too, George, because I have a couple of clients of my own who do role plays, but they do them differently, right? Like the different clients do the role play differently and are looking for different things. And I feel like, I have found, first of all, that sales candidates nowadays who are maybe into like 5-6 year experience range or lower, meaning that who started during COVID or later, they get really angry when they're asked to do a role play. They get super stressed and angry. Do you find that as well? That it's like, I don't know why, because you're a salesperson, you should be prepared to do this. But I feel like they get anxious and angry and they're like, they asked me to do a role play, or like I'll warn them, hey, so you're going to do a role play on this next phase of the interview process. And they'll be like, oh, you know what? I don't think that's a good fit for me as a company. I think I'm going to pull myself out of the process. This is the thing that's happened. I'm like, you're going to pull yourself out of the process because they want to do a role. And I'm warning you about the role play ahead of time. That's how much you hate role plays. And they're like, yeah, they should just be able to sort of see my past successes and hire me based on that. How do you feel about the reluctance, first of all, to the role play? Is that just a massive red flag and it's like, okay, cool, then don't do it because you probably are hiding something? How do you feel about it?
We celebrate.
Yeah,
they just saved us some time.
Yeah, there you go.
An effective process, actually. So top performers they recognize. I'm going to not complete that sentence. So how do you get better at sales?
It's a great question.
If you play soccer or you play a musical instrument, how do you get good at it?
Practice.
How do you get good at sales?
Same thing, I guess.
When do you get practice? That's what role plays are all about. It's as close to real world as we get. Top performers know the only way to get better is by practicing. Role practices, they recognize that's how they got as good as they are. And great leaders, great managers and owners, they do practice. They do role practices all the time. And I get the discomfort. Feedback we get, because when we get into our advanced training, we after they learn the foundational, like the philosophy and the process, then now you get time to practice. We do role plays like that. I don't call them role plays because then it just sounds gimmicky. I call it role practice. It's sales practice.
Yeah.
And the feedback is awkward, uncomfortable, didn't enjoy it, but it was the most valuable part of our training and we need to do more.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I get
That's
it.
a good point.
So here, so we have a process. Well, our screening process isn't really. I mean, a lot of our clients use it for all their hires because of the behavioral based components and what they learn. But basically, when we're looking for top performers, so we do things that really challenge people, put them outside their comfort zone, knowing that mediocre, average, or below average people will do exactly that. And that's intended. When we hear those words, and people don't want to participate, or here's what happens, Rick, this is so fun. There's a period of time when we do that interview where they actually have to do, it's a structured interview. They have to do part of it as a role practice.
Yeah.
A couple days before, we send them instructions.
Yeah.
Between getting instructions and that interview, the number of candidates who got their dream job it's just against all odds. I just got an offer and it was a dream job. And basically, I just saw the instructions for this role play I have to do as part of the interview, and I don't want to do it. So I'm going to save face. And then we watch them on Facebook, or not Facebook. We look at LinkedIn, and we don't see any changes to LinkedIn, which is the first thing you do when you get hired. I'm like, where'd that dream job go? They were lying.
Easy come, easy go on that dream job that suddenly materialized.
We celebrate that. We celebrate it. I want to share something. This is another huge tip. How do you screen for humility and coachability?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, tell me.
So in an interview, you want to create an environment where someone gets outside their comfort zone, where you really challenge them, and now they have to really think and be on their feet. And you might, if you can find, and this really is where the skills come in, find an opportunity to provide constructive feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Critical feedback. Because see, if you manage someone, it's almost like it's what managing them is going to be like.
Right.
So the interview process can give you a preview to one of your one-on-one debriefs. Like, just, or after you do a sales call, what do you think? See how self-aware they are. But if you give critical feedback, the person who gets angry, their face scowls, and they get defensive and argumentative.
Yeah.
The Bible calls those people fools. And that's just what they call them. And what they do is they take the truth, the narrative of the truth, and they bend it to their narrative. You don't understand. Here's what was really going on, and you didn't give me enough time, and I wasn't prepared, blah, blah, blah. That's what they do. That is a massive red flag. And we look for that. There's a lack of humility. There's a lack of coachability. Now, the person who you share that critical feedback, where they say they ask a lot of questions, and then they do a role practice and they didn't ask any questions, and then you say, hey, do you think you asked enough questions? And they're like, and then they, and then they own it. They take responsibility, and they don't blame someone. They say, you know what, this is an area that I could get it better at. Do you provide training to help your salespeople get better? And I'm smiling. I have a heart of gratitude, and I'm taking your truth and I'm bending myself to your truth. Like, I've got room for improvement. The Bible calls those people wise people. And you want to hire wise people, and you want to disqualify fools, and you'll have a great sales team. So that's an opportunity to create that in the interviewing process, so you can make an informed hire decision.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. This is a good segue to one of the other things that I find comes into play here in my experience, and I'd love your take on this as well, George, obviously with what you guys are doing, is the desire to hire a salesperson that you do not need to train, and the utter gap that I've noticed, particularly in recruiting, staffing and recruiting, because that's my field, right, of expertise, the gap in sales training. They have recruitment training, but often a lot of places will promote a recruiter in an agency as a very salesy thing. They'll promote them into being an account manager and then have them sell. Even if that's not the trajectory, they want to hire fully formed salespeople who come out of a bigger agency like a Robert Half or whatever else, and not train them really. rare is the client that really provides a lot of training and mentorship on the sales piece. So they're trying to hire someone who's fully formed in selling someone else's way of selling. Is that not problematic from the beginning? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Hey, it's
how do you feel about that? Is that something you're seeing as well? Is the gap in training, sales training?
yeah, I would agree. I think most companies, the majority, don't invest in their people to train them. For us, that'd be a disqualifier. Do you care about your people? Do you train? If we provide training and you don't believe in training, well, we're
Yeah,
not a good fit.
not a
So
fit. Yeah,
we
yeah,
don't waste our time.
yeah.
So I think that's important. Can you imagine if you had a basketball team and you hired and brought on a bunch of basketball players that all had a different playbook, that all had a different belief system about how they were trained to play basketball, and you tried to get them to move as a cohesive unit? Can you imagine how difficult it would be to win ball games?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly,
If
right?
you don't have one system, and we would say it this way, if you don't have one sales philosophy, one process, a common language, it's a nightmare managing them, right? And every company does do it differently. So there's certainly, every company has different processes they need to follow, maybe different CRMs they use, different terminology of sales stages. There is absolutely a learning component, and it's, if you're not going to train your people, don't hire them. It's like having children. If you're not going to raise your children and parent them and
Right.
equip them to be productive citizens and good decision makers, don't have children. Don't hire salespeople if you're not going to train them and responsibly lead them, because they're going to flounder, and you might get lucky, but the odds are you won't, and you're going to
Yeah.
lose a lot of money and time. It's going to be
Th-
frustrating.
That's a really good point. And I guess that sort of is the second piece of what you guys offer, right? Is it's like, okay, not only is it about the process of hiring, but once you've hired a salesperson, you'd mentioned about setting them up for success. What does that look like? And what are maybe some of the problems people have either come to you with or that you've been able to diagnose that are popular out there in not setting up this new salesperson for success?
Uh, um, yeah, no matter who you hire, they're going to have gaps in what they do or can do and what you need them to do. It's just going to be a fact. An effective hiring process helps you get to the truth, the reality of what those gaps are. You want to know what you're getting,
Yeah.
but there's going to be gaps. You have to have an onboarding plan that closes the gaps. If one of the gaps is someone's selling effectiveness, then there should be a plan to train them up. If no one on the team has the skills to train salespeople, then get outside help.
Mhm.
Hire a company, whether it's Topaz or someone, get outside help to get training. Um, so, so that's just an important reality. They're going to have gaps. Learn them before you hire. Make sure that they're closable, and in your onboarding, know you got to close those gaps, whatever it might be. And as far as it relates to a whole team, as a manager, when you start thinking about uh, it goes back to the basketball team. If they all have a different playbook, the alignment you get, the efficiency gain, the productivity gain, the increase in sales, when you have one philosophy, one process, a common language, the sales language that's followed by all. As a manager and as a team, when you talk about, I'm going to use the term ground rules.
Mm.
That's when you are meeting with somebody, and early in the conversation, you state your intent for the conversation. We
Right.
call those ground rules, and it's an
Good term
agreement.
for it. Yeah.
Hey, I'm here just to learn. I want to understand what's going on. We help a lot of people like you, but we know we're not a fit for everyone.
Right.
So I got to ask you some questions. Hey, by the way, please be completely honest and transparent with me. I'll do the same. If we find that we're a good fit, we should continue to invest time. Let's book some more time and continue. But if not, that's okay too. Let's just be honest and part ways friends, maybe another time.
Yeah.
It's all okay. Those in ground rules get in an agreement. Well, if you're in a team meeting or you're managing your people, if you don't have that common language about that step in the process and what you need to execute, well, then how would you, you want to be able to say, hey, well, what ground rules did you set? Oh, you didn't set
Yeah.
any. Do they even know what they are? Now you got the next person comes in, they sell a different way, and they're like, what the heck is ground rules? I don't do that. I don't even know what those are. Now you're managing to their style.
Right.
That just makes no sense. But a lot of people do it. They hope to hire and that they can just sell, but it doesn't work. They might get lucky. I'm not saying it never works, but if it works, they're lucky. But usually it doesn't work, and I would want to put the odds in my favor.
So that's interesting too. Let's go back then to one of the hiring process steps that you mentioned as well, with the role play. Like, there's a couple of clients that I know that have a very detailed thing in their role plays when they're hiring salespeople, that they can determine that the person is well spoken and they think on their feet and they have a lot of good attributes as a salesperson, but that it's clear that the way that they handled objections or the way that they brought people to the finish line or whatever was different than the way that they do it internally. Sometimes that's enough to say, like, this person's probably a good salesperson, but not for us, because we feel that they go about it in a very different way fundamentally. How do you feel about that? Is that the kind of thing where it's like the person's salesmanship is important enough and then you can train them on your process? Or, as you just said, is it a mistake to have people who are fundamentally different kinds of salespeople and try to manage them all differently because they're different? Like, where do you, I know it's case by case, but how do you feel about that?
Well, I think there are some people that just feel like, hey, diversity in our sales process is good. I just don't think that's right. I don't think you want diversity in your sales process and approach. But what you asked, though, about people having a different way of sales. So we actually, when we hire, because we hire sales consultants, and man, we're looking for the unicorn of unicorns, a needle amongst haystacks of haystacks,
Right.
So because there's such a learning curve, and we hire people that have a high degree of competence, but there's so much to learn that they don't know to be as good at skills the way we need them to be good. And so we put them through interview process that replicates what their role will be, so we can see how they deliver. And there are some that the gap is too large. I mean, we had a lady who we simulated a coaching session. Like, so if we train and coach people, that's the fulfillment. We get clients, and then somebody's got to train them to implement the processes and equip the team. So that's what we do. So we have an interview where they have to run a group, and we want to see how they facilitate, how they introduce themselves, how they interact. Well, one lady got to that. That's our last interview, and it gives us, it's a mutual fit. Do they enjoy the role? Is that the kind of work they want to do? We kind of give them a preview, but then we kind of get to see how do they do. And so one lady came to that interview, and she had a pretty good sales consulting background.
Right.
So we thought, man, she's used to working with clients, and so and actually she aligned with our core values, and she invested in herself and had her own consulting business for a while. And we're like, these are all checks all the good boxes so far. And then in that interview, she presented. She regurgitated some of the training that we were expected to watch. So she got to see it. We got to see it. And we wanted to see what she would do with that. She decided to present on information we already saw.
Right.
And that's not what we do. And so when she started, she said, well, I got a presentation here. And I'm like, you sure you want to do that? Okay, now did she connect the dots? I've had that conversation before. Somebody brought in a presentation, and the first thing they say is, I don't feel really comfortable doing this presentation right now. And I'd say, well, why are you doing it? Well, here's why I was thinking. And I go, well, what would you do in a real world scenario? Said, I would never present this. I go, well, then don't present it. And then they just didn't present it at all. All that preparation went right out the window, and they behaved naturally and did what we wanted, what we thought would be good. Well, this lady, she did the presentation, and through the process and even post, we started challenging her approach and sharing some critical feedback to see if she could pick up on the concerns we were having to see how self-aware and how fast she was learning.
Yeah.
When we
Reading the
learn
room kind
through
of
the
thing.
hiring process that they can connect with the critical feedback, critical means it's probably going to be a challenge and it's contrary to what they believe they're doing.
Yeah.
And can they accept it and receive it? When they show that they can, we then think we can invest and train them because we're a training company. We can certainly train. The question is, are they the right person we believe we could have success with? Will they learn it fast enough? Can they adopt it and change? And so that's what I would say is in the interviewing process, find people that you believe you can invest in and get results. Have the hiring process identify the gaps, but also see their humility, their coachability, their willingness to learn. And if you have somebody who's willing to do that, gosh, isn't that the holy grail? Wouldn't we all want people with a passion of learning and super coachable and super committed?
Yeah. For
Yeah,
sure.
give me
And it's
those
rare.
people. We can train them up.
100%. 100%. Yeah, there's something that's come up a couple of times in the examples that you're saying, George, which I find very interesting too, which is that they aligned with your core values and determining if someone aligns with core values. Often, and maybe you tell me if I'm nuts on this, but I feel like a lot of companies use the same exact buzzwords for their core values, and it doesn't paint a great picture of the nuance of what makes them their core values versus their competitor. Like
Yeah.
integrity, we're looking for some integrity, curiosity, resilience, intelligence, a desire to learn, and they all use the same, like variants of that. Is part of your process with these people trying to find out in a differentiated way what the core values are that people need to align to successfully determine that? Or like, what's that process like when you're coaching your clients?
Um, Coaching clients on core values. Well, I'll say this. This is how important core values are. I don't care how good they are in sales. If they don't align with your core values, it's a no-go. It's
Right.
a non-negotiable.
So
So, right. So in our process, when we help people as we fill out the job description, that's the first thing you do. Like, how do you know you found what you're looking for if you haven't clearly defined what you're looking for? And a lot of people don't really even know, what am I looking for? What are the
yeah,
skills? What are the attributes, etc.? So we help them close that gap. But in there, we also have an area for core values. And also in the job posting, we have an area, and it goes high in the job posting, our core values. People don't join companies. They can sell anywhere.
yeah,
They don't care as much about what you do, but more why you do it. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. So core values actually sell, but they also disqualify people that aren't a good mutual fit. So we highlight them. So then the question for us is like, how do we screen for that, or how do we have others? With our clients, we make sure that there's a discussion around core values, that those are front and center in their process. And then when it comes down to the interviews, oftentimes, like what we do is we'll ask, like, what do you know about our company? What research did you do? What were your thoughts about our core values? Did any of them stand out for you? Are there any in there that you feel would be difficult to fulfill? Our core values, one of them is love without limits. And you're like, what the heck is that? I don't know where that lives. I know integrity and all that other stuff,
sure.
but we respect others' values, beliefs, and abilities, and we meet them where they are. We come alongside them and we help them be the best version of themselves. We don't come in, we don't judge. We just care about them, and we respect them, and we truly want to come alongside them. We're not above them, we're not
Yeah.
below them. We come alongside them and provide them the tools they need to get to the next level. If you don't care
Right.
about others and you're in it for yourself, you're not a good culture fit for us.
No, but I see what you're saying. Now I
Yeah.
see what you're saying. That's a specific example where some salespeople who are a little bit more on the gritty side of things or a little bit more on the money motivated side of things might see a core value like love without limits and no judgments and all this stuff and think, yeah, this is too like, hippy dippy for me. I like a place that's a little bit more hardcore, or vice versa. Someone might be like, oh my God, I've been waiting my whole life to see someone say something like this on their
Yes.
core values, right? And go like, that's me. I don't want to be in that hardcore sales environment. So I see what you mean. It has to be specific enough to the idiosyncratic identity of what makes the people at the top humans, like what their
Yeah.
humanity is a little bit,
Yeah.
and it might alienate some people, but that's, I think, great, right? Because then you attract the people who are going to be like, ooh, that really stood out to me, instead of only just saying integrity. Like
Yes.
everybody says integrity. Who doesn't
Yeah.
want to have integrity as their core value? Like, you're not going to advertise that.
Rick, you're spot on. A lot of I'm in circles with business owners. I'm on a CEO peer advisory board and have been for over 10 years. Where all of us are smarter than any one of us. I mean, it's lonely at the top when you're an owner. So be with other owners and learn best practices. Learn your blind spots, things
Yeah.
like that. And one of the things we do is focus on what are our core values. What do we stand for? What do we believe? Like, that just doesn't magically happen. We don't wake up and say, oh, this is what we do.
Yeah.
We have to develop it and formulate it and really challenge it and say, what is it we believe? But it does exactly what you said. But let's go back to our screening process and good mutual fit. We want people to read them and either go all in saying, and we have people say that, like, hey, I didn't think that having that belief system was possible in business.
Yeah.
I didn't think faith and business could coexist, and it's like, well, we believe what treating others humanly is written on your heart. I think this is the way we're wired. We're just saying will make you better in sales. We help people do the things to build trust. What's on your heart and what you believe and how you care has a massive influence on trust. And hey, newsflash, people buy from people they trust. Those are really great sales attributes if you're trying to sell. So we have our very clearly defined core values, and we try to vet from people what they align with. And we also have one that says honest about everything. We have open, honest, transparent conversations, and we seek the truth.
Right.
We're not outcome based. That's so radical and so hard in today's world. But that's a core value, and people can love it. Or if they're manipulative and they think they're smarter than everyone else and they want to get what they want to get, you're not a fit for us. And I hope they don't apply.
Yeah, no, I hear you. In the circles that I'm in rec to rec, we do things very much that way. And I'm not saying that we're not outcome based at all, but that it's not the guiding principle. And it's because it's a small world, right? In rec to rec of recruiting people. If we started and we're peers, right? If you're recruiting your peers and selling to your peers who are also salespeople, and you start, they'll know right away if you're trying to close them on something. They'll know right away, right? So and they'll tell everybody else, oh, these guys just want to, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost the only PR you need for yourself is to be like, yeah, I talked to these guys and I got a lot out of it, and they didn't even try to force me to do something that I didn't want to do for their own gain, right? So especially if you're in a small ecosystem, I love what you're saying, and it is radical. Some people think it's bonkers when you talk to them about not being driven by a sales-driven outcome, but rather just actually looking to give proper advice, and even telling people, yeah, you shouldn't do this thing that I'm suggesting. Actually, I think you should do this whole other thing that won't make me a penny. But man, the residual benefit in a small ecosystem when you can do that and give people good advice that doesn't benefit you is huge from a sales perspective.
No question about it. And hey, I can't turn off my coaching ear. You said not being outcome based, like you're there, you're close, but not always, or you're working on it. Can you say a little bit more about that?
I didn't mean to suggest that we're never outcome based, but that it's not the guiding principle, right? Like, we're not entering into a conversation in order to get a certain outcome. The question is to get to know the person, like from a recruiting standpoint, get to know the person, understand who they are, what their motivations are, where they're at, what the problems are, and is there a problem that we can help them solve? And is there a problem we know someone else that can help them solve that's not us? As opposed to just coming in with an agenda of being like, I want to put this person in this seat kind of thing.
Yeah. Is there ever a time you are outcome based?
Yeah, a little bit. And when I say outcome based, I mean it's a qualifying tool for us for from a sales perspective, not on the candidate side, but on the sales side, is, if it's a role, or if it's to determine if it's a good fit, right? It's trying to foresee if the outcome is going to be something that we can actually do. In other words, it's trying to figure out, can we deliver on this role? That's an outcome based thing in my mind. So in other words, I wouldn't just take a job that we couldn't fill. right? Like we want to make sure we can actually fill
Okay.
the job for the person. That's maybe
Yeah.
not the same thing you mean, but that's what
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
head, I'm like, from a sales perspective, we're never
Yeah.
gonna say, hey, yeah, we'll take this job and fill it if we don't truly believe we're gonna give them the
Yeah.
outcome they need and find that person.
Yeah, I'm tracking with you. So if you don't believe you can have a win-win outcome, it's not good business. So a
100%.
win-win outcome is an outcome. I guess there you could put it in a
That's what I
qualifier
was
there.
thinking. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Maybe we're
Okay.
defining it a bit differently, but that's basically what I mean.
That's fair. Okay. Because if this would actually be like in a training session we would
Yeah.
have, and somebody, this one guy, asked the question. We were talking about, hey, a competent salesperson tries to get a prospect to say, yes, let's have lunch, let's play golf. Yes, let's have lunch, send me a proposal, or no. And and of course, most people pick something other than no.
Yeah.
And so we started talking about no, if no is an okay answer. And then so I asked this guy, I says, hey, so you married? And he goes, oh yeah, 5 years. And I go, great. What's her name? And he gave me her name. And then I said, did you propose to her? And he goes, yeah, I did. I proposed. And I said, let me ask you this question. What would be the best answer when you proposed? A yes, a no, or the truth? And he's like, well, a yes, of course. And I
Uh-oh.
said, I go, okay, it just means I have a little bit more work with this guy. So I went to someone else, asked him the same question. He's married longer, and I go, what would you say? And he goes, a no. And I go, I'm not a no. I'm sorry. He said the truth.
Oh, the
And I
truth.
go,
Yes, yes.
oh, okay. He goes, yeah, I would absolutely want to know the truth. And then I went back to the other guy. I go, hey, what if you found out your wife was in love with another man? And you already had the wedding shower and the
Yes. Yeah.
gifts, and now she's afraid to pull out. Would you really want a yes, or would you want the truth? Can you handle the truth? And the whole point of it was being a truth seeker and not being tied to an outcome.
Yeah. 100%.
Hey, maybe the guy screwed up and they need to work through a couple issues and then get married. Like, wouldn't you want to know the truth? And
Absolutely.
this is so deep. So not being outcome based, it's like, if there's anything there, I always try to go for what's holding you on, because it only makes sense. Like, we should never tie to an outcome. We should always be looking for the truth. So I always try to find the issue.
I love that analogy, George, because it does really ring true. I don't think anybody's going to listen to that analogy and be like, "Oh yeah, I've heard that, and now I don't want the truth." But it is true in sales, though. It is true that there's a lot of different layers at which that speaks to the process, right? Like, people are, you don't want to get married to the wrong client and work with the wrong client for X amount of time and spend all this time when it isn't really going to be a win-win for yourself and the company as well, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
even being able to walk away from business to going in thinking that you're going to get this business is, to your point, going in wanting a yes and not
Yeah.
necessarily qualifying them properly to see, like, yeah, is it aligned, and having the sort of courage
Yeah.
and center of self to be able to say, yeah, you guys seem great, but we're actually just not a fit. Best of luck to you. Here, I'll refer you to these other guys who might be a fit, or something like that, and move on to the next one. It's really hard to do, especially in a tough market where
Yeah.
people are being hounded for numbers. But
Yeah.
I think that's a great analogy to sort of cement why it can be a big deal.
It can be. Hey, along that line, so there's a guy, he went through a year of training, and we talked about the power of getting to the truth and recognizing the power of no. It's a wonderful answer when you understand it, saves time, eliminates assumptions and all that. And he said, hey, George, I got to tell you, man, I get it. I get where you're coming from. I get the no, I'm not afraid of it. And he goes, but I got to tell you, if I'm in the heat of the moment and I feel the deal slipping away, I'm going for the yes. And I'm like, oh, I'm thinking, oh, I called him by his name. I said, this is what I'm up against. I have a battle of sales philosophies out there.
Yeah.
There's going for the yes, and then there's going for the no, which is for us going for the truth. And so I said, hey, you got to humor me. Help me out, man. I said, this is a challenge. I have to meet people where they are. And so many people believe that. And you were honest with me enough to tell me that.
Yeah, which is
even
good.
after a year of working with me, I get it. So we did an exercise. We wrote down all of the benefits of trying to get someone to tell us yes. Did I lose you?
Oh, I think you did briefly, but I'm back now. We're
Okay.
good. Yay,
We're
internet.
back. So we wrote down all the benefits of trying to get a yes. And then we wrote down conversely, what are all the risks of getting a yes, maybe, selling services to the wrong client, or unprofitable business. And as long as you believe the benefits of getting a yes outweigh the risks, you're going to go for a yes.
Yeah, I
Are
completely
you
agree.
tracking with me?
I am tracking with you, and I think that
Okay.
that's a very. Are you still hearing me?
Yeah, I
Or
can hear you.
has the
The
internet
video is
down?
a little
Okay,
jaggy,
good.
but the audio is sounding good. On the flip
I
side,
know. I
though,
actually
then,
just switched something.
oh, I see. On the flip side, though, I just want
I
to
just
add
switched
this
something
last
there.
point. Once you realize the risks of selling to the wrong person are greater than the benefits of just trying to get a yes, that's what's going to change your sales philosophy view. And that's really at the heart of it, but very fun.
No, I think that that's a really good point, and I think that that's an excellent illustration of how it can be really hard to walk away from business. Those
Yeah.
sales instincts, and even like you say about sales philosophy, sales ideology, the core of the person, what is motivating them as a salesperson? And often, I feel like it's FOMO, like you're
Yes.
saying, like fear of missing out, fear of being like, oh, this was money and I'm not going to get it. Like, does that mean I'm a bad salesperson? Am I not a closer? Like, just the spiral that happens when you feel a deal happening and you see it go away. And if your
Yeah.
guiding principle is FOMO, then you're gonna make a lot of moves that might not be the right moves, right? Like if
Yeah.
that not just the always going for a yes, but the fear of a no too. You know what I mean? Which are I think
Yeah.
different core mechanics in a person.
I think you're right. One of the first things is you have to understand the power of the word no in sales and recognize it's a wonderful answer and change your view of that. And I know anyone listening to this probably thinks we're smoking something over here and that we don't have it all together.
We're
That's
bonkers.
okay. We won't be the first one to say that.
Yeah.
But there's really a lot of validity to it. And as after a conversation, you start to realize, okay, actually that makes total sense, but the voices in your head will almost tell you to do it different than what makes common sense. And that's the behavioral change that we seek. Like when we train people, we spend more time working through their self-talk and their belief system. Processes are easy to train, skills are easy to train, beliefs are more difficult, and we spend a lot of time on those. Once those are correct, executing the other stuff is much easier. Asking
Yeah.
questions is much easier when you have the right intent.
I love that, George, because again, this being recruiting EQ, I love to focus on the emotional intelligence and emotional quotient of things. And I
Yeah,
love that that's where you're coming from on the sales front, as opposed to, you often hear from people sales is just a numbers game. I'm not saying that numbers don't play into it, but it's definitely not just a numbers game, right? It's like, what
right.
do you think? How are you approaching this? Who are you when you show up to these? And I love that you've brought that to the table here today. I know we're kind of over time, so
Oh
I'm
boy.
gonna
Okay. Hey, I didn't
my
even realize we're having too much fun.
it flew by. Time flies when you're having fun. And obviously, George, I love your passion you're bringing to this. I'm also really into this stuff too. So we could have probably gone Joe Rogan style and done like a 4 hour, but sadly, that's not the show.
We have,
But thank you for being here. Everybody, if you are listening and you are interested in looking into this kind of transformative, EQ driven sort of sales training and coaching and all that, reach out to George. George, your LinkedIn is on here. Where else can they reach out to you? What's your ideal way for them to get in touch with you?
absolutely. Our website, topazsalesconsulting.com, has a wealth of resources, lots of videos, lots of tips, things like this. And to your point, yeah, it's selling, it's hiring, it's responsibly leading high performing teams. And Rick, you provide. We have complementary services.
We do.
We focus on helping people make the right hire. But in terms of finding great candidates, man, that's a lot of work. Finding people that may not be looking, cultivating that relationship, piquing their curiosity, and doing some of that vetting absolutely helps people make better hires. So I encourage people to look to you to find people that are hard to find, especially if it's a tough position or there's a short turnaround time. Invaluable investment. So thank you for your time and putting me on.
Thanks, George. I appreciate the plug. And yes, we are complimentary services. So if anybody wants to hire both of us, you're probably the wisest person listening right now.
Hey, just give us a call. Go on our contact page, request a conversation, and we'll set up time with our consultants, and we'll figure out if there's an opportunity to help you.
Awesome. Thanks very much, everybody. This has been Recruiting EQ, and hope to see you all on the next episode.
Thank you.